Hey there guys, Portal Master here, and welcome back to another episode of A Brief History of Skylanders. Now, this is the last planned entry in the main series of the Brief History of Skylanders series. There are more potential episodes I am interested in doing, and we will talk about that at the very end of this video, but let's jump into today's topic, which is Skylanders 7 / Skylanders Imaginators 2 / Skylanders Imaginators Year 2. Essentially, Skylanders What Could Have Been. At this point, you're pretty out of the loop if you don't know that there was at one point a sequel planned for Skylanders Imaginators. For all intents and purposes in this video, when I talk about Skylanders 7, I'm talking about a now canceled game that happened that was originally planned for 2017 or 2018, and only a few details are actually known about said game. For the longest time, there were rumors that a Skylanders 7 was at one point planned to happen. You know, back in 2016 and 2017, we really thought a sequel to Imaginators was going to come. I mean, yes, sales didn't look too great for Imaginators, but developers had talked about plans for future installments, and I genuinely was in the camp that I believed that there was going to be a Skylanders 7, or when it got to March and we started seeing the Lost Imaginite Mines and the Cursed Tiki Temple announced, I thought we were going to get a Skylanders Imaginators Year 2 instead, and obviously that did not happen. However, after several years, and it was towards the end, I think, of 2018 that we started to see some evidence of this really start to come out, there was definitely evidence that Skylanders 7 of some type was planned. You see, the Crash Bandicoot N. Sane Trilogy reuses a lot of code from the Skylanders franchise. This is interesting since, you know, Vicarious Visions is the one who developed Crash Bandicoot, but in fact it was Toys for Bob that developed, you know, Imaginators. However, Vicarious Visions did actually help Toys for Bob to some extent with Imaginators. I actually think that Imaginators was probably the third most collaborative game after the original two, where they worked jointly on it, you know, completely together. Imaginators definitely saw a lot of collaboration. They made the Thumpin' Wumpa Islands, and for instance, the Neo Cortex model in Skylanders Imaginators is the exact same model that is in Crash Bandicoot. The Insane Trilogy for Crash is a little different from what this new game is going to be. They don't run on the same engine, and as a matter of fact, if my understanding is correct, then Insane Trilogy and Imaginators actually run on the exact same engine. So the first little bit of evidence that we started to see for a Skylanders 7 was back in, like I said, 2018, when a data miner found reference to Skylanders code. You can see the picture right here. It says on there, Skylanders 2011, Spyro's Adventure. Skylanders 2012, Giants. The 2013 one is a prototype name for Swap Force. You can see 14, 15, and 16 all line up, and then you see right there, Skylanders 2017. So whatever was supposed to come out in 2017 doesn't have a name. We've never seen a name for what it was, and I think there's a couple of reasons for that, which we'll talk about here in a minute. So when we first saw this, we were like, well, holy crap, that means there was something planned. But it's always been unclear what that was, and to this day, we still don't know for a fact, although I think that we have pieced together a pretty good understanding of what was actually planned. If you're unaware, there's also another series that a really good series that I haven't fully watched yet, where it is a Skylanders developer interview, and I will link it down in the description below if you guys are interested in it. The later episodes talk more about the ending of the franchise and have some interviews with certain people from the franchise that talk about how there were plans for games beyond Imaginators. Among those plans was essentially a plan for Imaginators 2. There was not a concrete plan beyond Imaginators for a unique gimmick. I think what their plan was, and I said this years ago in a video, their plan was to create a Games as a Service Skylanders game, which is essentially what Disney Infinity 3.0 and what LEGO Dimensions were supposed to be. Dimensions pulled this off because they essentially would release updates every so often, and they would release new playsets and new levels. Disney Infinity had the same idea. While 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0 were all separate games, there were never plans for a Disney Infinity 4.0. They were essentially just going to start adding playsets and releasing updates for the game. That was their long-term plan with Infinity, and I think that that is what the long-term plan with Imaginators was. I think that Skylanders 7 honestly may not have so much as been a thing as Imaginators 2.0, if you will. In these developer interviews, people have said that there was an idea for quadrupedal Skylanders that you could create as Imaginators. So essentially, all Imaginators you create have to have 2 legs. Well, it looks like they wanted to make 4-legged Imaginators a thing. It also seems as if they were going to add more classes. Even in the Imaginators code, there are 3 battle classes that were completely unused. You have Summoner, Commando, and Ringmaster. I'll try to throw up the image of those, but essentially there are references to the code for these 3 battle classes that didn't see the light of day. And honestly, you kind of wonder, why did they not see the light of day? And honestly, there may have originally been planned more characters for Imaginators that just never happened. Imaginators only has 3 characters per element and then 2 in light and dark, so they may have planned for more at first. Maybe they were going to bring back 2 villains or something like that, and that would have allowed them to have added, those 3 new battle classes, or maybe they were cut really early in development. Odds are, with Activision and Toys for Bob and Vicarious Vision's penchant for reusing things from older games, like just look at Crypt King, for instance, and Snapshot. Those were originally both planned for Giants, and they ended up coming out in Trap Team. So with the fact that they like to reuse things, I'm sure that we would have seen, these battle classes in any type of potential, Imaginators add-on. But then, almost a year later, in January of 2019, we saw these 3 guys, which are characters data mined from, again, the Insane Trilogy. They were found much later than this original code. They're, I guess, hidden somewhere deep in the code. You have this Dust Bunny looking guy. That's what a lot of people have, taken to call him, as Dust Bunny. You also have this guy right here, who is some type of undead hockey player. You can even see he has ice skates there at the bottom. And then you can also see some type of Red Riding Hood figure, almost like Torch's species, I don't really know, riding on top of some type of wolf. Well, if you actually look in the files, these things are referenced as like Fire Wrangler, Undead Bruiser, and then I think the tech one was still a blaster, but honestly I can't remember specifically what it was. But essentially, you had more battle classes right here, and these guys are actually done. Like, the tech and the undead character actually are playable in the Insane Trilogy if you hack the code. Like, he can go around and he can use his hockey stick and he can slide around on his ice skates. These guys were pretty far into development, and I have always assumed that these guys were most likely going to be the starter pack characters for whatever it was, especially if, like, Beast Riders would have probably been the coolest of the, Imaginator types you could have made. Honestly, they were probably going to have like a new class of, senseis that were all, of these types of battle classes. Say they had implemented, 5 new battle classes or something like that. They could have done, one new character per element, and then that would have been able to allow for 2 new characters, and I think that that is genuinely something they could have done with, whatever was supposed to come next. Personally, I think that Imaginators Year 2 was planned. Whether or not Skylanders 7 was also planned has always confused me though, because while I do think that eventually they would have gotten around to releasing, the 4-legged Imaginators, I've always wondered, would that have been in Imaginators, or would they have needed to make a true sequel to that? And in the interview, I think it is specified that that was an idea for a sequel. But again, I just don't think that they were ready to release a game in 2017. I think that they were probably going to do like the Destiny model. Destiny, if you don't know, when it was still owned by Activision, what Activision wanted to do was release a Destiny title every 3 years and then release expansions for Destiny. And Activision really likes that model for Destiny, and as a result, that's actually why Bungie split from Activision, because Bungie wanted to support Destiny 2, and it's what they're doing now, for 6 total years. That's Bungie's plan. So I think that Activision was going to move to a semi-annual installment, doing one in 2016, 18, so on and so forth, with expansions. The only thing that doesn't quite line up with this idea is the fact that the Cursed Tiki Temple and the Lost Imaginite Mines do not seem to have been originally planned. You look at Robo and you look at Wildstorm. Neither of those characters were listed in a type of adventure pack. They had single pack listings when they were first, referenced in Walmart online listings. So it's very strange that they ended up being released the way that they were, which makes me think that they weren't planned to originally come out like that. And honestly, if you think about it, they're not really themed to those adventure packs. And I feel like, while they haven't always done the best with theming, like Terrafin and the Pirate Seas doesn't make any sense. The other 2 adventure packs actually do make sense in Imaginators. Like, you've got Boom Bloom in the Enchanted Elven Forest. That makes sense. You've got, airstrike in the Griffin Park Observatory. That makes sense. So it seems like they would have released, a character to have gone along with these, with these expansions, and that's not what they did. So I think that maybe what had happened was they had planned out, the first 2 expansion levels for whatever was supposed to come after Imaginators. But after Imaginators did not do well, they chose to not, release new figures. They didn't make more figures, but Toys for Bob had already finished 2 full levels, which would be the Lost Imaginite Mines and Cursed Tiki Temple, and they were like, well, we want to release these somehow as sort of a last hurrah. And so they were like, okay, well, let's just take Wildstorm and let's take Robo, and we'll just package them with, the expansion pieces. I think if you look at, what could they have originally been planning, you look and say, oh, well, there were 5 unreleased creation crystals. Maybe their original plan was to release 5 expansion levels on top of the Cursed Tiki Temple and Lost Imaginite Mines. They chose not to, and that's why we never saw those creation crystals, because they weren't supposed to be made until the hypothetical year 2 in the first place. Ultimately, a lot of the stuff that surrounds Imaginators Year 2 and Skylanders 7 is forever going to be a mystery. We really don't know what their long-term plan was. We don't know if they were planning on releasing Imaginators 2 in 2017. That could have been what they were planning on doing. Or they could have been waiting until 2018. Their plan may have never included another true Skylanders game. Maybe their plan was games as a service for the Skylanders model. I mean, it's perfect in all honesty. You just have to release more figures. Honestly, it's really hard to say what their long-term plan was for Skylanders, but I do hope this video helps shed a little bit of light and give a little bit of good speculation on what it could have been. I'm really interested in what you guys think their plans were for Skylanders after Imaginators before, Imaginators performed poorly and they had to cancel any potential sequels. So please do tell me that down in the comments. I'm really interested to hear what you guys have to say. But that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Portal Master. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. Go follow me on both Twitter and Instagram. And if you're feeling social, you can jump in the Discord down below. Thanks again. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks again for watching. I just wanted to take some time to thank my generous patrons on Patreon, including APYT Skylanders, Haley, Cinderclash, Adrian, OctoBoom, True Blue Dogemon, and HypnoticOcelot.